and if they expect me to walk away from Luton with nothing, I'll make very sure there's nothing to walk away from.
Hello and welcome back to the Oak Road Hatter podcast. I'm Billy Mully, today joined by Jamie Castle following Saturday's 3-1 defeat at Brentford. Jamie, you were there. How was it?
I think I've only just defrosted, that's for sure. It was probably the coldest I've been since that Darlington away 5-0. Don't know when that was, but that sticks in my memory in terms of being absolutely freezing midweek at Darlington. But yeah, Brentford on Saturday was close to it. And then just frustrated. I sort of, after a game like yesterday, I just try and take the weekend away from social media and football just to try and not get dragged too down about a result or a performance. So yeah, I've had a nice sort of refresh of a weekend after Brentford and back to it with a pretty big week ahead. Arsenal and City at home. I don't think you get any harder than that, obviously, apart from being away. But if you remove the home and away sort of caveat in terms of teams, you don't get much harder than that in this league.
That is for sure. As mentioned at the start, we'll be going through Saturday's 3-1 defeat to Brentford, but also casting an eye over Arsenal at home, one that I'm really, really looking forward to. And if history tells us anything, Luton like to bounce back well. So that's probably an extra reason why I'm buzzing for Tuesday night. But we take it back to Saturday, and probably looking back at the last pod we did, we were mentioning that Brentford had a lot of injuries, a lot of shuffling of the pack. Does that bring about a sort of element of disappointment, because not necessarily they weren't there for the taking, but it was a good time to play them, the way sort of injury situations stacked up on them?
I thought it absolutely was a good time to play them, they were there for the taking. I don't think that's big-headed or harsh on them to say. I think if you break down the performance, first half we were absolutely fine. We were comfortable, probably the most comfortable we've been in a half of football this season. They caused next to no threat. I haven't got like the stats in front of me in terms of first half XG, but probably only had about 2 shots outside the box. What wasn't really scared in terms of the threat from them, and you're thinking get in at half time, and we're always a side that grows into a game and gets better as the game goes on, given the stat we have in terms of late goals we can score. And yeah, obviously injuries changed the game, which is just really, really devastating, really. But then equally, probably a few decisions made and a few errors, soft goals to concede. And it really does get you down a little bit, to be honest, because if you look at the month ahead, right, we've spoken about it, Arsenal and City. So clearly, obviously, you think we have a chance of getting a point maybe from those two, but any sane Luton fan would think, yeah, well, that's 0 out of 6. So then that's another 2 games without getting points. So really was a good chance yesterday to get some points on the board, at least one, that's for sure. So that goes adds to the frustration. So there's loads of different factors which we could obviously break down over this first half of the pod, but just I think we've been frustrated quite a bit this season, but probably for me, no more so than yesterday.
And you mentioned 0-0 at half time, Brentford offering fairly little in terms of clear-cut chances. I think, but by the sounds of things, Brentford fans were frustrated with that first half display. And then you sort of cast your mind and you sort of look ahead to the next 15 minutes, and that is vital in a game like that, one where Luton are obviously defending quite low, we're sucking up a lot of pressure. That 15 minutes becomes vital, and quickly enough we're 2-0 down chasing the game, and it quickly goes from a fairly ideal situation to disaster, Jamie.
No, exactly. I'm just looking at the stats in front of me now. I mean, they had 4 shots off target and 2 shots on target in that first half, 5 blocked shots. So that shows how good we were at defending sort of our 18-yard box. XG of less than 1 when they ended up with sort of 3.47 XG over the game. So that just shows how potent they were in the second half. I think you have to give them some credit to an extent because they caused us problems and they made the most of the adversity that we experienced in terms of losing Lockyer. I mean, that second half performance hasn't done Lockyer any harm in terms of his status in the squad because we missed him badly. Clearly, if we had a Burke fit, for example, or an Anderson, then the impact would have been less because we would have been able to have brought in a light for light. But in terms of our current squad as it sits, Lockyer's sort of grown his status in the squad. And yeah, it's just looking at the second half, even despite the injuries and despite the changes we had to make, all 3 goals. I mean, obviously Edward would say that every goal is avoidable, right? But all 3 of them is just you can't defend like that in this league. Like it just can't happen. Okay, there's an element of luck in there. I mean, the second one in particular where Mengi heads it and it comes off Carlton's right arm, but Carlton obviously just jumped and didn't seem to make an effort to try and get in front of the ball. He just sort of jumped a bit half-heartedly and just let the ball hit him. And then the third one, Kaminsky gets down, I think, well to save. You can't really have any bad words against Kaminsky for the third one because it was a reaction save to stop that first shot, and then you have to have a supporting defender just to clear it. So obviously, yeah, you can add the caveat that injuries didn't help us. I think if Lockyer stays on the pitch, if Mengi stays on the pitch, then that second half doesn't happen. But the players that come in, and no matter if you're a centre half or you're a fullback, or even if you're playing out of position, you have to know how to know how to defend first and foremost, no matter where you play. So yeah, you just need to do better there, and we need to learn a lot from those 3 situations in particular.
And of course, the Lockyer situation at half time brought about a fair few questions to Edwards as to what he would do. I think when you look at the squad there and you sort of look at the situation he found himself in, there were a lot of different ways he could have gone about it. Opted for Brown. A lot has been made about that decision. What do you think? Do you think that it was too early to make a substitution like that? And of course, we've got Giles there, and there's a lot of talk on Luton Twitter about the what is the point of bringing in Giles if he's not going to get that game time. I guess, what's your thoughts on that?
I think I completely agree with the voices against Giles. I mean, I was one of them early in the season, and he hasn't done anything this season to deserve to get a start. I think that is what everyone can agree on. But when it gets to the point where you have injuries, Rob Edwards talked about in his post-match press conference about square pegs in round holes, but you've got a left wing back, and it's not like, I mean, no offense to a Joe Johnson, no offense to a Joe Johnson, where he's a young lad, no real experience at any real senior level. Obviously, he's done really well in terms of getting into the England youth setup, but by and large, is still very, very much a young option. Ryan Giles was the best wing back in the Championship last year for an electric Borough side, and okay, he hasn't done too much for us when he's got the chance this season, but there comes a time where you just need to just bite the bullet, and whether you trust him or not in that situation to play that half out against a very strong Mbomo, you just have to just risk it, because not only are you not playing a left footer in terms of Giles on that left wing back, you're taking Kabore, who had a good first half, out of his position and putting him on the left where he's not comfortable. You're putting a a forward. Okay, he's not a striker, but he's probably like a right forward, and he can, if needs be, playing that right wing back role. But you'd rather have Kabore there. I think you're just changing too much, and the changes are just too hard to get to grips with. And okay, again, as we said, Giles hasn't done enough, and we know defensively he's shaky, he's weak, and for what he's shown us, he will get found out at this level at times. But he's now had chances to sort of in training to get up to the speed of the team, and you just have to just throw him in. You just have to bite that bullet. You paid £5 million, and he's so far down the pecking order now where it's like, well, what is the point? And you see when we made that £5 million transfer, you thought, oh, that's a good sign. He's come from a good level of performances last season, and whether he hits the ground running or not, you think over the long term he's going to come good. But you need to give him a chance in situations like yesterday where injuries just go against you. And okay, if he'd stuck Ryan Giles at left wing back, kept Kabore at right wing back, and that second half still happens, I don't think people are as sort of confused, because you think, well, it is what it is. Like you've lost Lockyer, you've got Mengi, Osho, and Bell as three centre halves who. From sort of the summer, do you think are they going to be our starting three? No, I mean individually they're all good players, but you're losing Lockyer, Burke, and Anderson, so we're already weak there as it is. You're missing Doughty, so even that second half gets put in with that back five with Giles on the left and Kabore on the right. You're still thinking that okay, it is what it is, but it just adds to the confusion that second half gets played out, and you've got a right-footed Kabore on the left and a forward in Jacob Brown on the right, and it's just a risk or just a decision that I don't think you need to make. For me personally, at some point you go to a back four. I think you have Bell left back, you have Kabore right back, then you have Mengi and Osher in the middle as a four, and you add an extra body in midfield. I think we were comfortable in that first half, so I would have taken that risk to go to a back four a bit earlier and gone to like a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3 maybe, and just give Morris some support. Morris first half did nothing, as he has done for a while. Whether that is him or whether that's the system, I think we can go into a debate on. But you make that change instead, and you think, okay, well, we've lost defenders and we're lacking numbers, so let's take risk going forward and add an extra man up top, rather than doing the square pegs in round holes in terms of Brown on the right and then a right foot Kabore on the left. It's just, yeah, it's confusing for me. Love Edwards. He has absolutely loads of credit in the bank. He's a Premier League manager, and I'm just some stupid old podcaster, right? So it's not for me to have too much of a go, but you just have to ask these questions, and I think it's only right that fans, not just us, but every Luton fan has a bit of a challenge and a bit of a question as to why that change was made, and I think that's a fair challenge to have.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation because I think you're fair. It's completely fair in the criticism of what happened. It's the fact when people are dismissive and saying Giles shouldn't ever play for this club and stuff like that. Something that's too far past the line, because of course he has struggled, and it's fair. It's easy to see that he struggled. Technically, I still think he adds a lot of quality. His issue at the moment is definitely mental, and he's taken a real confidence knock from what was a struggling start to the campaign. And you think back to Kabore. Kabore at the start of the season struggled, and the way he got through that was being played. Whereas Giles' situation, he's not being played. So I think that's definitely a part to do with it. I think a situation like this could resolve itself with additional game time, but obviously that's not going to work for everyone. It's a real difficult situation, and when a player has taken a confidence knock as like Giles has evidently done, it's really difficult to know the right form of action. Of course, with Kabore, it was playing him, and defensively, I think we're seeing a better and better Kabore every week. And you sort of apply the system of what he was doing at Middlesbrough last year. He was a high-flying fullback with. Now, he was a left-back with limited defensive responsibilities. That's how attacking Michael Carrick's Middlesbrough were. but he's come into a completely different style of playing in a level that is foreign to him. He might have had the odd few minutes for Wolves. I don't think he did, but ultimately this is a much higher level. And when you have difficulties, it's quite hard to get back to that required level. It's a really difficult situation. I think he's a very talented player with good technical abilities, both going forward and in possession. Defensively, there's work to be done, but I think it's mentally where the most amount of work has to go in for him. And people saying, why is he even at this club? Why did we spend money on him? There's obviously a reason. There is obviously a reason, and I think he's proven in his loan spells that he's a quality wing back. And I've even said to you, Jamie, that I don't believe fullback is his position. I think he'll play higher up the pitch. So yeah, I hope we do see the best version of Ryan Giles at Luton Town. And I hope we just see him back to his confident self that he displayed, in all of his previous loan spells. He's a good player that definitely has a very positive and bright future ahead of him. I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah, and there is this element of man management as well, right? Where I didn't personally see it in particular, but when Barkley had that Instagram story on Instagram, obviously, where Pelly was dancing, that video, and apparently Ryan Giles was sat in the background, just really on his phone, looking a bit glum, despite a big 3 points against Palace, and clearly he's down about the situation. He's obviously in a club that's fighting really hard, and by and large the dressing room atmosphere is very positive, but you've got a young lad there. What is he, 24, 25? So he's still fairly young, and he's probably, again, confidence is shot to pieces. Now, he's not stupid either. When he's on the bench seeing Tom Lockyer down with a stretcher at half time, he's thinking, well, Edwards can do one or two things there. He either plays me as a defender and does a bit of a shift around, or you change formation to a back four. Now, if formation changed to a back four, as I said, you think Giles can't really have too much of a moment, because that's a tactical switch up. But now for him to see that, actually, no, we didn't change system, but Rob Edwards would rather put Jacob Brown a forward at right wing back, that would just, it almost damage his confidence even more, right? Because it's one thing to be sort of down the pecking order behind Doughty, Bell, Kabore, and even like Benet when he sort of when he's played there a few times, but that's been like an in-game on the pitch move, and that's when we've been going for the game, so you can sort of see it. But then for Jacob Brown at half time to come on, like, that damages his confidence, and you almost think that the man management of Giles in that situation is probably worth more than sort of like the potential point that we would have gained. So yeah, it is a bit confusing, but it'd be interesting to see how it develops over the course of the next, 2 months maybe. Does Giles get a loan move in January, or who knows? It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Definitely. I think looking at his situation as well, as you mentioned there, you cannot rule out a potential loan move. This season was all about grinding, all about the defensive and dirty work. Whereas if we were to remain in the division, naturally you start thinking a bit more progressive. How can we be better on the ball? How can we, offensively create a lot more? I think that's sort of the natural progression. So what happens with Ryan Giles over the next sort of month, 2 months is going to be one to keep your eye on. Let's go on to the main positive of Saturday, and that was the goal. Ross Barkley doing Ross Barkley things in the middle of the midfield, playing a inch perfect ball to Jacob Brown, who secured a second goal in 2 games. Jamie is becoming quite the goal scorer after a bit of a barren run. What do you make of the goal, and Jacob Brown, a player that's starting to show some confidence in front of goal? That's an exciting prospect, considering the difficulty he was having at the start of the campaign was finding the back of the net.
Yeah, and he did something what I think every Luton fan wants to see more of, was a bit more of a shot from distance. Okay, it wasn't 25 yards away, but just on the edge of the box. He was being able just to get a shot away and drill it past Flecken, a great finish. Sort of in contrast to Ryan Giles, is someone that's probably growing in confidence sort of game after game now, having come on and got the winner against Palace, and then got a goal back to make it 2-1 against Brentford, and he's thinking, yeah, I could have helped change the game here. Obviously, it didn't turn out that way, but still confidence going really well. And just in general, I thought the ability, I guess the character of the team to, despite being 2-0 down in the freezing cold, to be able to put it back to 2-1 and make us dream or believe for a few minutes that we could do a Forest again, I think it is a lot of kudos to the strength of the group. A lot has to be said about that. Obviously frustrating to concede the soft third goal, but in that situation, despite everything, we at 2-1, we still win the game, and that's exactly what we want. We want to be in the game with sort of 20 minutes to go. So that's a positive. Ross Barkley, not really a lot to say, to be honest. What a player. Probably for me, the best player at the club at the minute. He's exactly what we hoped he would be, probably, and some. He's got that ability now, again without Nakamba, to be able to just grab the game by its neck and just try and get control of it. And that's what he's doing. The way he can get out of sort of tight situation to keep holding the ball and find a spraying pass to either Chio or Kabore or whatever. I thought he was excellent. Probably man of the match. I think Bell was man of the match first half, but I think given the second half and the defensive issues, he can't get the sort of man of the match of the game. But I think Ross Barkley probably deserves it. And then for me, another shout out to Chong. I thought Chong was excellent in the minutes that he had. Was unlucky to, I think, be offside. I've not seen it back yet, but it was. I think it seemed tight from my angle from the corner flag. So I think Chong deserves to keep starting as well. He looks lively, and you can see the work he's put in training since his stint in the team early in the season. And then in terms of going forwards, I mean, Chong went to the left when Ogbene came off and Townsend went on the right. And I would love to see Chong on the left, Ogbene on the right against Arsenal. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Love Ogbene and love what he is for us and what he does for us to get us up the pitch. But I think he's so restricted on his left foot on that left side. And I would love just to... You've got nothing to lose against Arsenal on Tuesday. Nothing to lose. Just stick him on his strong side on the right. Just do it. I mean, Kabore, you can't play against City on Saturday, so you play him against Arsenal for sure. And that on the right of Kabore and Ogbene, and left of hopefully Doughty if he's back, and Chong, seems like it could work well. So I would love to see that. But now going forward, it's definitely positive. I think we're starting to look a bit better in front of goal. Again, question marks on Morris. I thought Eli came on and did well again for sort of like the second or third game running. But I think we're starting to look like we have a few more ideas up top. And clearly we've got two big tests now against Gabriel and Saliba on Tuesday, and who knows on who it is on Sunday. It could be any two of Vardy, Ake, Diaz, Stones, all world class centre halves, right? But yeah, got nothing to lose, and I think we can definitely cause problems.
Let us head into a short break. When we're back, we'll talk all things Arsenal ahead of Tuesday night's clash under the lights at Kenilworth Road. We are back for part 2 of today's episode, and with the schedule looking very, very championship-like as we head into the Christmas period, it is Arsenal at home that is next on the agenda, Jamie. One I am really, really looking forward to. And first of all, let's touch on some injury news that came on Friday, but of course we haven't had too much time to reflect upon it yet. Nakamba and Lokonga both making decent... Lokonga particularly has been making excellent steps in his recovery. It's been a while, nearly 3 months that he's been out. I think when we initially heard, it looked like it was going to be January or even beyond when he got back. But he's back in full training. Whether obviously Arsenal game coming up, so he won't
He
be
can't
eligible
play.
for
No.
that one. But that's probably a good thing. There's no decision whether to risk him or not. So you'd like to think he will be available for the City game coming up. All very good news. Nakamba as well looks like he's getting back to full fitness, and we all know Nakamba what an addition he has been at Luton Town Football Club, and he's hit levels I think in the last sort of month or so that are of very high quality, especially next to Ross Barkley. So that's good. He's getting back to full fitness. Alfie Doughty, a bit of a question mark as to whether he'll be fit, but again, doesn't sound too serious. So, 3 bits of decent news coming from that presser. Obviously, none featured against Brentford, but good to know that there's no real long-term issues that we have to be too concerned about.
Yeah, really good. And I think if you've been honest with yourself, probably 2 games that are almost well timed, right? You want to have your strongest players fit for the games where you're most likely to get points. So if it means that we need to take some on the chin against Arsenal and City, so then they're back fit for Bournemouth, then so be it. Because the Bournemouth game clearly is the one that you target to get something from, even though they've turned it around and they themselves are looking good, especially with the result today against Villa. So yeah, squad wise is looking good. Lokonga back will be huge. Clearly, you can't play tomorrow. Not tomorrow, Tuesday. Well, it'd be tomorrow when this is live, but on Tuesday. So yeah, all good stuff. Nakamba, it was good that he's not out for a while. Don't even know what the injury was, right? I don't think he came out, or I wasn't paying attention. Thought Pelly has done all right, but clearly Nakamba's an upgrade on Pelly, and probably so is Lokonga, despite us only having seen him for about 100 minutes across 2 games or something that we saw him for. So yeah, all good stuff. Alfie Doughty being back would be huge. Even though Bale did really well against Brentford, but again, just numbers, especially because Kabaway can't play on Sunday against City because he'll be not cup tied, but impairment club tied. So yeah, it's sort of 2 games to get out of the way, and then hopefully from Bournemouth onwards, that run of Bournemouth, Newcastle, Sheffield United, Chelsea is a pretty big run of games. Okay, two really tough home games, one relatively tough away, and then an away against Sheffield United. So I think let's not talk about that right now. We'll leave that for a future pod. But games that we can target for points more than these next 2. So hopefully players get them back fit at the right time.
Let's look at sort of the I mentioned there the schedule, the fact that it's hectic going into Christmas, and that could go one or 2 ways. Sometimes if a team's on a poor run, it can spiral and games come a bit too quickly, and before you know it, you're a lot worse off than if you had a normal schedule. But I think Luton, I mentioned it at the top of the show, we've had a real positive tendency to respond well after difficulties and poor performances. And, Arsenal is about as tough as it can get, bar maybe Man City, which is Sunday. But you look at the game, you look at what happened against Liverpool, and you really get a sense of we can put in a performance that we can be proud of, and we can ask questions of an Arsenal team that will be evidently targeting this one as 3 points.
Yeah, and you said at the start of this segment it was a championship schedule. Okay, it's Premier League teams and sort of Champions League teams for a lot of it. But it's ultimately a championship schedule, and we've got players that are used to the sort of 3 games in a week nature of the championship. So we've got players that have the ability to just go again, the mental strength to just go again. Like even if we were to, let's say, lose 4-0 back to back against Arsenal and City, I don't think that the players will get too down, given the sort of games that they are, and B, the sort of players that they are in terms of the mental strength. So I think it would be a good thing. I think obviously it gets dark early now, so most games nowadays are under the lights. So Newcastle 3 p.m. On that 23rd will be a bit under the lights. Same with Chelsea, or actually that's midday, so that won't be. But I'm positive with the schedule given the sort of the experiences that we've had over the past years. I think when the going's got tough, we've somehow been able just to pull points out of nowhere. So hopefully we can scramble a few together in the tough games and then make the most of the easier ones. So yeah, I'm positive, and I was saying to some of the guys on the train back, obviously they were thinking, oh bloody hell, it's Arsenal and City. But I was like, you just have to enjoy it. Like, this is exactly why we want to be in this league, is for players like Bukayo Saka and Erling Haaland to come to Kenilworth Road. So if you don't enjoy these games, then what's the point even being here in the first place? Even if the result goes against us massively, you just have to enjoy them. Clearly, we want to put up a fight. Both games are on TV. Arsenal being on Amazon Prime and City on Super Sunday. But it's the time for us to show the world what we're made of. Because okay, we've been on TV like a Luton West Ham, but not everyone will probably watch that Luton West Ham sort of game. But if you're against the big boys like an Arsenal or City, that's when everyone really takes note of the sort of performance that we can put in. So yeah, I think positive is the wrong word, because I'm a realist and I don't expect anything from these next two, but I'm positive in terms of the performance that we can put in. We showed against Liverpool how good we can be against the big teams, and we're very unlucky to not get 3 points. And I don't think Arsenal were much better than Liverpool. I think over the course of the season, Liverpool have been as good as Arsenal. So I think if we can put in the performance we did against Liverpool, then why can't we against Arsenal?
I think it's only natural that we draw comparisons to Liverpool, and I guess my question will be: do we expect a similar approach to that Liverpool game, where we were quite aggressive in the way we pressed in moments, but we also gave respect to the opposition. Arsenal, like Liverpool, are a team that attack with good width. They've got quality in wide areas, very, very front-footed. Do you expect, if Luton are to get anything from this game, then we can see a game plan that's very, very similar to the one we deployed against Liverpool?
Yeah, I think we have to. I think there's definitely similarities in terms of Arsenal and Liverpool. Liverpool probably a bit more aggressive in their press compared to Arsenal, who are a bit more passive, but a bit more brave on the ball, and probably have that little bit more quality in midfield. But I think we can't be stupid, right? I think we have to be exactly as we were against Liverpool. I thought game plan was nigh on perfect for 95 minutes, albeit we benefited from a sort of a few less than clinical spells for Liverpool. But we have to ride our luck in these games. If Arsenal are on form, then they beat us. As simple as. We can't limit Arsenal to no chances for 90 minutes, so they'll get their chances. We just have to hope that they don't put them away. So yeah, same again. And yeah, I think the front three is fairly similar to Liverpool, right? In terms of they've got two very good wide men. Probably a less than clinical centre forward in Jesus, a bit like Darwin. But yeah, still very good players. But very technical players. I think that they're gonna try a lot of sort of tidy one-touch football and try and pull our shape apart, and that's what we need to be careful of not doing. I think if we're too aggressive in the press, then they'll pull us apart, because that's what they can do with their 1-2s and their sort of their round the corners to those midfield runners. Declan Rice, for me, one of the best midfielders in the league, at least potentially in Europe as well. So he's going to be able to hold their shape and just sort of run the game for them. So yeah, it's going to be obviously a very tough game. But yeah, I think we can put in the same performance as we did against Liverpool.
And of course, this is us coming up against the current league leaders. Arsenal top 33 points in their first 14. Of course, they came second last season, gave Man City a very, very good push. Evidently will be sort of annoyed and aggrieved by the fact that the end of last season, didn't really pan out the way it could possibly have had for them. As I sort of look at games as well that really cost them last season, there was a few games against teams that were in that relegation battle that they dropped points against. Do you think that will play a part in Tuesday's game? The fact that teams of our kind of level last season gave them problems. Do you think that will creep into the thinking of Mikel Arteta? And do you think that's something that we can try and exploit?
Hopefully, I think we have to look for every chance we have and every weakness, and if there's a bit of a mental weakness there, then hopefully we can exploit it. We all know the atmosphere that Kenny can provide, and I think the Liverpool game for me was the best atmosphere this season. So we as fans need to take it on our shoulders and try and replicate that environment. Try and get at them first 10 minutes and try and put them under pressure, and see if there is that mental weakness there. Fundamentally, it's on us to test potential Premier League champions, and if they come to us and manage to win at a canter despite us playing really well, then that's also kudos to them, and a team that rightfully probably say that they're title challenging, and obviously there's a lot of good teams in there with City, Spurs played out obviously an awesome game today. You've got Liverpool. There's a lot of good teams in that, but you can't drop many points nowadays in the Premier League, or you won't win the league. You definitely have to aim for that 90-point plus mark nowadays. So games like Tuesday night for Arsenal are really important. They need to come to us, and they need to show their dominance. So yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting first 15 minutes. I think if we manage to get at them and try and exploit a bit of mental weakness that we can, and put them under pressure, then it could be a tough game for them.
And of course, player availability will dictate where the key battles will be. But looking at it as if, I guess you've got the availability that we did have at the end of Brentford, and a couple of players that we've spoken about potentially in the frame of a return. Where do you see those key battles being, Jamie? Chilwell, Bene, we mentioned him at the start. During the Brentford game, the potential for him to play left or right. You fancy him on the right. Do you think that could be a very good and potentially fruitful avenue for Luton up against whoever it be? Zinchenko, I think, is continuing to play there. And then obviously the other side, you want to see you want to see Chong there. Sorry. So, do you think those are sort of avenues of seeing success? And we know, well, us Luton fans have got to see very closely how impactful Ross Barkley can be. Do you think that having a threat, both wings and central, do you think that could be massive for us going forward?
Yeah, I think going forwards, we always have to try and exploit the wide areas. I think that's probably where we're strongest and where most teams are weakest in this league. I think in terms of, if you look at the fullback area, that's where most teams can be got at. Zinchenko is an excellent player, but he comes inside a little bit and tries to play a bit of a sort of a auxiliary central midfielder at times. So is there going to be space at the back for Bennett to get in behind, or Townsend or Chong, whoever it may be? So that's going to be an interesting one. On their right, you've got it's Tomiyasu, but Ben White might be back. So if it is Ogbene, can he try and get at players that probably are more central defenders in nature rather than actual sort of out and out fullbacks? Midfield, Ross Barkley has been our best player in recent weeks. Declan Rice, I've sort of said how good he is and how I think he is. So can Ross Barkley do a job on Declan Rice is going to be interesting. And then obviously defensively, they've got a lot of threats. Saka on their right, Martinelli on their left, and Jesus up top. So can Lockyer pull through for Tuesday? Can we get Burke back maybe? Mengi and Osho, hopefully. Well, I think Osho finished the game, but can Mengi get back fit? Can Doughty get back fit to defend against Saka, or can Lockyer get back fit so you can put Bell there maybe? Kabora against Martinelli, all over the pitch. There's some really interesting matchups, and it'd be really interesting to see how the game plays out. we have to see how our players pull through from Saturday. If we lose Lockyer and Mengi and Doughty's out, then yeah, it's probably going to be a long night.
Let's get into some score predictions now, Jamie. As we all know, Mr. Optimistic, that's your tag. Is it gonna be 3 points?
No, I think given the current team news and the current injury status, I think a lot of it rides on that. Going on who I think may or may not be back, I think it's going to be really tough to try and get something on Tuesday. I think it's probably a game too far for us at the minute. I think if we had the squad available that we did for Liverpool against Arsenal, I think we can definitely match that performance. But there's a few key players out: Nakamba, Doughty, probably Lockyer, maybe, or Mengi. So no, I think it's going to be a really tough night for us on Tuesday. I think there's not going to be a sort of a lack of effort or lack of quality in some areas. But I just think it's probably a game too far given the current injury list. So I'm going to go for Arsenal 3-1.
Yeah, I'm going to sort of join you on the fact that player availability is going to be key. You mentioned Nakamba and Doughty, massively important for us and the way that we defend and also the way we go forward as well. So, yeah, two very difficult situations because ideally those two are two of the first names on the team sheet. So, yeah, it's going to be tough if we're without them, but ultimately we have shown that we can deal in their absence. I'm going to go 2-1 Arsenal. I expect another good performance. I expect Kenny to be rocking like we know it can, and yeah, I expect us to put up a good fight. Quality and glimpses, pressing well, but yeah, I do think that going forward, Arsenal do possess that little bit more quality than Liverpool. And as you mentioned as well, I think that the first 15 minutes could be pivotal as to how how the game progresses. You look at Arsenal in recent weeks; they've started games very, very well. They were 2-0 up in quite quick time against Wolves. During the week, they were 4 goals up in 35 minutes, I think, against a decent French outfit in Lyon. So yeah, they are a fantastic outfit, sit top of the Premier League for a reason. And it's going to be an exciting test, a test that I'm sure all of our players will be relishing. Well, that is it for today. A big thank you, Jamie, for joining, and a big thank you to everyone watching and listening at home. As we mentioned there, it's the game coming up on Tuesday, so the next pod will be coming out Thursday will be a Arsenal review and a Man City preview. The games do not get any easier. But until next time, it is goodbye from us.